Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into a truly compelling and, at times, quite provocative text. David Deida's The Way of the Superior Man.
Absolutely. It's one of those books that really sparks conversation.
It really does. And it's not just a book you read, is it? For many, it feels more like a profound guide for men, and importantly their partners, to navigate the often confusing waters of modern masculinity, relationships, and even spiritual growth.
That's a great way to put it. It tackles some big themes.
So our deep dive today is built on a rich stack of sources. Specifically, we've got carefully selected excerpts from the book itself. We're talking prefaces, key chapter introductions. It gives us a really unique lens into Deida's core teachings.
Yeah, getting it straight from the source material.
Exactly. And our mission, well, it's to extract the most insightful nuggets, The ideas that really challenge conventional thinking about purpose, intimacy, personal power.
And help people grasp it quickly, right?
Yeah.
Without getting bogged down.
Precisely. Help you, our listener, gain that knowledge quickly and thoroughly without feeling overwhelmed. Now, before we really jump in, there's an important caution from the book itself we need to share.
Ah, yes, the disclaimer.
Right, it states, neither the author nor the publisher are engaged in presenting specific medical, psychological, emotional, sexual, or spiritual advice. So this deep dive and the book itself, it's for understanding, for contemplation. It's not a substitute for professional consultation.
Crucial point. It's about ideas, not therapy.
Definitely. With that clear, let's get started.
Okay, so what's fascinating right from the get-go is how Deida frames our current moment. He points out that those traditional, often really rigid roles for men and women...
Like the sole breadwinner guy, the submissive housewife image.
Yeah.
That stuff.
Exactly that stuff. He says it's profoundly dissolving. And this isn't just about, society changing. It's fundamentally impacting how men understand themselves, their relationships. It leaves a lot of people searching for, a new blueprint.
And it's in that shifting landscape that he introduces this idea of the newly evolving man. When we talk about that, what does it actually mean for someone trying to figure out where they fit today? Because it's clearly not about just going back to those old archetypes.
No, definitely not. The newly evolving man, as Deida describes him, is someone who is unabashedly masculine, so purposeful, confident, directed, has deep integrity, a good sense of humor.
Okay, the strong, positive masculine traits.
Right. But, and this is crucial, he's also sensitive, spontaneous, and spiritually alive. It's not an either. It's about integrating these seemingly opposite qualities.
Oh, okay. Integration.
Yeah. This man, according to Deida, is dedicated to incarnating love on this earth through his work and his sexuality. He's living as a free man, not bound by outer convention nor inner cowardice.
So he's explicitly not the scared bully posturing like King Kong.
Right.
But he's also clearly not the new age wimp, all spineless, smiley, and starry-eyed.
Yeah.
That's a really sharp contrast he draws. He points to a very specific path.
It does. The superior man, in Deida's view, has embraced both his inner masculine and feminine sides, but, and this is a key nuance, he no longer holds on to either. He sort of moved beyond those labels.
He's transcended them?
Kind of. Able to just live from his deepest core, fearlessly giving his gifts and committed to magnifying love in the world. It's less about being masculine or feminine and more about living truth.
This sounds less like arriving at a destination and more like a journey, progression. And Deida actually outlines specific stages of gender role evolution that we've moved through. Can you walk us through those? It seems like we went from one extreme maybe to another, and now we're looking for something else.
That's a perfect way to frame it. Historically, he identifies the first stage as those fixed and separated roles we mentioned, which, led to those extreme caricatures, men dominating, women using emotion for security. The old script. Then came what Deida calls the 50-50 stage, particularly noticeable from, say, the 1960s onwards. This is where men started embracing their inner feminine, more emotional expression, more openness, maybe even more fluid styles.
And women.
Simultaneously, women magnified their inner masculine, focusing on careers, assertiveness, financial independence, taking on roles previously seen as male.
Okay, and on the surface, that sounds like progress towards equality.
Right.
Which is good, but Deida points out some pretty significant side effects. This 50-50 stage didn't just lead to, like, universal romantic bliss.
Not quite. He argues it actually led to passion fizzling out.
Fizzling out. Why does he think that happened? That seems counterintuitive.
Well, this is a really important point he tackles directly. He argues that while the 50-50 trend achieved, important economic and social equality, it inadvertently resulted in sexual neutrality.
Sexual neutrality.
Yeah. And this, he says, is precisely why passions are fizzling out in so many modern relationships. It explains those common complaints you hear independent women feeling men are too weak or, well, wimps.
And sensitive men feeling women are too hard or ball busters. Those terms he uses.
Exactly those terms. Deida is really clear. He sees this not as the end point of evolution, but as an intermediate stage. People are kind of stuck, struggling to find a new balance that actually reignites that spark.
Okay, so this intermediate stage, this neutrality,
Yeah.
it leads us to what he sees as a crucial missing element for that spark: sexual polarity. What exactly is that, and why does he say it's so vital for deep, sustained passion?
Okay, the core concept here is that sexual attraction fundamentally relies on sexual polarity. He defines it as the force that arcs between masculine and feminine poles.
Like magnets or electricity.
Exactly like that. Think of Earth's magnetic poles, north and south, or electrical positive and negative charges. Just as you need those two different poles for magnetism or electricity to flow, Deida argues you need distinct masculine and feminine energetic poles for sexual feeling to flow, for passion to really last in intimacy.
So partners cling too much to what he calls politically correct sameness in intimate moments. That sexual current just dies.
That's his argument. It disappears. He says for real passion, you need a ravisher and a ravishee, not just two buddies who decide to rub genitals in bed.
Wow. Okay. That's incredibly direct language, and it might make some listeners kind of uncomfortable given modern sensibilities about equality and sameness.
It is direct, absolutely. He uses strong language to make his point very clear, but he also adds a really crucial nuance here. This polarity, he stresses, is independent of physical gender and sexual orientation.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about men and women in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Not at all. He explicitly says it's true in homosexual relationships as well. You still see masculine and feminine, top and bottom, butch and femme dynamics playing out energetically. The point isn't about conforming to traditional gender roles in daily life. It's about the energetic polarity in moments of intimacy. That's what fuels attraction, in his view.
That's a really, really important clarification. It's about energy, not just bodies or roles. Okay. Now, Deida then connects this energetic polarity to what he calls our sexual essence. He identifies three: masculine, feminine, or balanced. Could you break those down? What does he mean by these different essences, and why is understanding your own so fundamental to his whole philosophy?
Absolutely. So if you have a more masculine essence, according to Deida, your deepest drive is this profound sense of mission or a search for freedom.
Mission and freedom.
Yeah. And this isn't just about your job or career. It shows up as an attraction to things like competitive sports, facing big challenges, breaking through constraints to achieve a goal. For this person, life feels fundamentally empty at its core unless they discover and live this purpose. Even if their family life is full of love and connection, that emptiness remains if the purpose isn't lived.
Okay, that's the masculine essence. And what about the feminine essence? What's the core drive there?
For someone with a feminine essence, the priority is fundamentally the search for love, or more specifically, love flowing fully in family or intimate life.
Love flowing fully. Okay.
They're drawn to things that evoke that feeling of fullness and connection, like deep, intimate conversations, love stories, even simple pleasures like savoring chocolate. The professional life could be incredibly successful, but if that deep flow of love is missing, their core remains unfulfilled.
Interesting contrast. And the third one, the balanced essence.
Right, the balanced. About 10% of people, according to Deida, have this. For them, that intense sexual polarity isn't quite as crucial for passion. They often prefer more of a civilized friendship dynamic without the intense, energetic highs and lows of polarized intimacy.
Okay. And he clarifies the book is mostly for.
Yeah, he's very clear. This book is explicitly for those with a masculine sexual essence and their feminine essence partners, which he notes is the most common case, something like 80% of couples, he estimates.
So knowing your own essence is really crucial for deep spiritual and sexual fulfillment, and for shedding any kind of pretense about who you truly are. And he warns that denying it causes problems, right?
Yeah.
Both physically and existentially.
Oh, absolutely. He argues that for those with a feminine essence who consistently run excess masculine energy, maybe focusing solely on career at the expense of love's flow, it can lead to disturbed physiological symptoms, like a kind of inner burnout or exhaustion.
And for the masculine essence, guys.
Yeah. For masculine essence individuals who disconnect from their purpose, it results in a weakened core, an impotent existence, both literally sometimes and definitely metaphorically, a lack of drive, a lack of vitality.
And this is where those cultural complaints come from, the ball busters and wimps.
That's exactly what he argues. It's a sign of profound misalignment with one's core sexual essence. Independent women feeling men are too weak, sensitive men feeling women are too hard. It stems from this denial or confusion about essence.
Wow. This really ties into that larger cultural challenge Deida highlights. He says, and this is a quote, "We have advanced in terms of personal freedom, sexual equality, and social rights, but we have remained spiritually thwarted and afraid." That's a pretty stark assessment of where we are.
It is stark, and he attributes this, at least in part, to how we've erroneously begun to deny, smooth out, and neutralize our masculine and feminine differences, often in the name of social fairness or equality.
So in trying to be equal, we've maybe suppressed something essential.
That's his view. In doing so, he believes people often suppress the natural desires rooted in their true sexual essence. This leads to a kind of cramped and fearful spirit, even if they achieve, a safe relationship and a successful career on the surface. It's less about the social changes themselves being bad, and more about how we've navigated them in a way that sometimes sacrifices our authentic, energetic expression.
Okay, so if you're a man listening, and you resonate with that masculine sexual essence, what does Deida say are the core principles for living as a superior man? This first part of the book really gets into a man's way, and it kicks off with a pretty impactful, almost jarring statement. Stop hoping for a completion of anything in life. What does he mean? It never ends.
Right. It sounds almost pessimistic at first, but it's not. This is a really foundational concept for the masculine essence. Deida identifies the masculine error as this pervasive belief that things will fundamentally change one day.
Like when I finally make enough money.
Right.
Or when the kids leave home. Or when my partner finally understands. That kind of thing.
Exactly that kind of thinking. Deida's blunt response is, it never ends. The challenges, the fluctuations, the partner's moods, they don't just stop. The real creative challenge, he posits, is always to engage with the present moment, right now, to tussle with it, play with it, make love with it, while consistently giving your unique gift to the world.
So the practical application here is super direct. Spend a minimum of 1 hour a day doing whatever you're waiting to do, and start now. No more waiting for the right time.
Precisely. No excuses, just action. He challenges you, the listener, to ask yourself, are you willing to do what it takes to give your gift fully? He suggests that most postponements are excuses for a lack of creative discipline.
And this is just about career goals, right? It applies to relationships, too.
Absolutely. He says, don't hope your woman will magically change into someone easier. Assume she's going to be, however she is, forever. Your job isn't to fix her moods or behaviors. It's to find humor in her unending emotional drama and practice love instead of trying to bring an end to the quality that bothers you. Love her as she is.
Wow. The ultimate takeaway, then, seems to be that men who have lived significant lives are men who never waited. Every moment you wait, he says, actually degrades your clarity of purpose.
That's a powerful call to immediate action, cutting right through procrastination.
It really is. And that immediate decisive action leads perfectly into his next principle, which is always hold to your deepest realization.
Okay, deepest realization, what's that about?
The central idea here is that eternity must be a man's home, moment by moment. He's talking about organizing your entire life around this ever-fresh realization of your deepest being, your core consciousness, that awareness that's always present beneath the surface thoughts and activities.
So it's about prioritizing being who you are at your deepest, most easeful levels of being. And everything else, your job, family, money, is kind of superficial and empty if it's not floating in the deep sea of your conscious loving. That's a pretty radical perspective, suggesting we often get caught up in the surface stuff. He does make that very strong claim. He encourages a daily practice. Feel into the source as deeply as possible before you engage with your daily life, your tasks, your interactions.
How do you do that practically?
Well, he suggests aids like reading inspiring books, spending time with inspiring people, and definitely regular meditation, contemplation, or prayer, whatever connects you to that deeper ground.
And the warning if you don't.
The warning is stark. Without this grounding, life just becomes spent in hours and days of business, and then it will be gone. Tasks, he argues, become a mirage of necessity if they're not anchored in this deeper realization. They just consume your life without actually fulfilling your spirit.
That makes profound sense. And it naturally flows into finding your core purpose, right?
Yeah.
Chapter 11. If you don't know your purpose, discover it now. How does he define purpose for a man, and what happens if you don't know it?
Deida posits that the core of your life is your purpose. Simple as that. Without it, he says, a man is totally lost, drifting, adapting to events rather than creating events. This leads to a weakened, impotent existence.
Impotent.
Yeah.
Like literally sometimes, or just metaphorically.
Both, potentially. He suggests it can even manifest physically as sexual impotence or just a general lack of enthusiasm and drive. The practical application is clear. Align everything, your diet, your career choices, how you spend your time with your purpose. If you already know it, then discipline your life so that you support your deepest purpose and minimize distractions, cut out the fluff.
And the outcome of this alignment, this deep integration of purpose into everything.
When you're aligned, he says, every instant of career, every instant of intimacy is filled with the power of your heart purpose. Work and intimacy are no longer separate struggles. They transform into opportunities to give his gifts and be vanished in the bliss of the giving. It's about being full from within, radiating outwards, rather than constantly seeking something external to fill you up.
That sounds like an incredibly powerful way to live. But what happens when a purpose feels done or complete? He also talks about being willing to change everything in your life. This isn't just about making small tweaks, is it? It sounds more like a radical openness to massive shifts.
No, not small tweaks at all. He emphasizes that a man's growth involves cycles. Cycles of strong, specific action focused on a purpose, followed by periods of not knowing where that purpose dissolves.
Okay, so purpose isn't just one thing forever. It unfolds.
Exactly. It unfolds in layers, he says, from maybe inherited or learned purposes, what society or your family told you to do, down to your deepest core purpose, which might take time to uncover. And an important insight here is that successfully completing a lesser purpose doesn't feel very good for very long.
Why not? Shouldn't completing something feel good?
Well, it might briefly, but he argues it's often just preparation for deeper growth. Each purpose, each mission, is meant to be fully lived to the point where it becomes empty, boring, and useless. Then it should be discarded. That feeling of emptiness isn't failure. It's a sign you're ready for the next layer.
That's a challenging idea, especially in our culture, that really values completion and sticking with things no matter what. How do you know when a purpose is genuinely complete and it's not just, laziness or fear making you want to quit something?
That's a crucial question, and he gives specific signs to look for. Things like a sudden, total disinterest in a project that used to really motivate you, feeling free of regrets about starting it or ending it, feeling clear and unburdened even though you don't know what's next, maybe even an increase in energy at the thought of stopping, and the project itself suddenly seeming kind of silly.
Okay, those are pretty concrete signs. If those are there, it's probably time to let go.
Probably, yes. But he stresses doing it impeccably. Finish your commitments, leave no loose ends. Then you enter that period of not knowing.
Right. And during those periods of not knowing, that uncertain phase between purposes, what's the action plan then? How do you find the next direction? Just wait around?
Not exactly wait around passively. He says you wait for a vision, but you do it by actively avoiding distractions. Cut out the noise TV, endless computer games, casual dating just to fill time, excessive drinking. He highly suggests retreats or dedicated quiet solitude.
Okay. Create space for the vision.
Create space. And then when an impulse for the next direction comes, and it might be subtle, act on it immediately. Learn by trial and error, jump in, rather than waiting for the entire plan to be perfectly clear. He shares an anecdote about a stockbroker who felt his purpose there was done, waited for a vision in solitude, and then found a new, deeply fulfilling purpose helping nonprofits, eventually becoming a patron.
That's a great story. This whole approach sounds like a powerful antidote to getting stuck in the do mode, right? That endless cycle of tasks. He calls it, don't get lost in tasks and duties. That mode can be a strength for getting things done, but it sounds like it can also be a trap.
Absolutely. The do mode is a masculine strength for focused action, no doubt. But it becomes a weakness if it turns a man into what Deida calls a machine of picayune, someone totally lost in trivial details, who forgets his larger purpose, his reason for doing any of it.
He asks this really profound question for self-reflection. If you were to die right now, what would be the feeling texture of your last moment? Would you be absorbed in endless tasks, Or would you be feeling awe and gratitude for existence itself?
That's such a powerful and immediate way to shift perspective, isn't it? He states very clearly, tasks don't get a man anywhere more conscious or free than he is capable of being in this present moment, and that no amount of just ticking off duties adds up to love, freedom, or full consciousness.
So the tasks should serve the deeper purpose, not become the purpose itself.
Exactly. Tasks, he asserts, should ideally liberate energy for true freedom and connecting with your deepest truth. He suggests actively interrupting the daily schedule with refreshers, little moments of perspective.
Like what kind of refreshers?
Things like contemplating death, reflecting on enlightened beings, of people who inspire you, pondering the sheer mystery of existence, or just taking a moment for profound, loving connection. The reminder is stark and clear. You are not a drone. You are the unbounded mystery of love. Don't forget that in the midst of the to-do list.
Okay, so moving beyond purpose and tasks, a superior man also needs to cultivate deep authenticity and continuous growth. And that, Deida says, starts with the heart. Live with an open heart, even if it hurts.
Wow, that sounds incredibly challenging, especially when our instinct is usually to shut down and protect ourselves from pain.
It is challenging, and he confronts that protective instinct head-on. The core idea is that closing down in the midst of pain is a denial of a man's true nature. A superior man, he says, learns to be free in feeling and action, even amidst great pain. This means learning to stay in the wound of pain, feel it fully, and still act with spontaneous skill and love, rather than just retreating or reacting defensively. He gives some really practical ways to identify and counter those unskillful reactions to hurt, doesn't he? What are those telltale signs of closing down?
Yeah, things like withdrawing emotionally, physically hiding or hunching, closing in. You might feel a tense chest or solar plexus, maybe avoid eye contact. These reactions, he says, trap a man in self-protective tension that actually cuts him off from his true power and intelligence.
So the practice is the opposite.
Exactly. Consciously open the front of your body, relax the shoulders, chest, belly, breathe deep into your belly, allowing the breath to expand you. And crucially, look directly into the eyes of others, allowing yourself to feel both your own pain and theirs without flinching away. Only then, he argues, can your fullest intelligence manifest spontaneously, allowing you to respond with mastery and love rather than just knee-jerk reactivity.
Now here's where it gets maybe even more interesting and perhaps a little uncomfortable for some. Live as if your father were dead.
Oh.
That's not literal, is it? It sounds like a powerful metaphor for psychological liberation.
No, definitely not literal. It's absolutely a metaphor, but a deeply impactful one. The core idea is that a man must love his father, appreciate him, but also be fundamentally free of his father's expectations and criticisms, to be truly free in his own masculine expression.
So it's about cutting those invisible strings.
Yeah.
The need for approval or the fear of disapproval that can subtly steer your life.
Precisely. He invites some deep reflection. Would you feel any sense of relief associated with his death? Would any part of you be happy not to have to live up to his expectations anymore? How would your life be different right now if you weren't subconsciously trying to please him or prove your worth to him, even if he's no longer around or you don't see him often?
And the practice he suggests for 3 days is to do one activity daily that you've avoided or suppressed because of the influence of your father. That's a very direct challenge to that ingrained influence.
It is. It's about practicing being free, even if you still feel fearful, limited, or unworthy inside. It's a direct confrontation with that inner self-judgment that might stem from paternal influence, allowing a man to reclaim his authentic desires, his authentic direction, separate from that legacy.
This kind of radical honesty also extends to oneself, doesn't it? Chapter 4. Know your real edge and don't fake it. What's the distinction he's making here between honorable admission and dishonorable faking?
Deida asserts that it's completely honorable for a man to admit his fears, his resistance, his edges practice, because every man has limits in areas where he's still growing, where he needs to push himself. But it's dishonorable for him to lie to himself or others about his real place.
So don't pretend to be more enlightened or more capable or less afraid than you actually are. But also, don't stop short of your actual edge.
Exactly. Don't play smaller than you are, but don't puff yourself up either. The more a man honestly acknowledges and plays his real edge, the place where he meets his resistance, the more valuable and trustworthy he actually becomes.
He asks some very pointed questions there, like, where do your fears stop you from making a larger contribution or earning more money? If you were truly fearless, would you be earning a living the same way you are now?
Yeah, those are confronting questions. He says, if you feel you're not afraid at all, you're likely lying to yourself, because all men are afraid unless they are perfectly free. And pretending to be fearless just causes others, especially friends and partners, to subtly lose trust in you.
And the flip side, some men just hang back.
Right. Some men hang back in their comfort zone, leading to lives that might be secure and comfortable, but dead, lacking the aliveness that comes from living at your edge. Others might push too hard, constantly striving, but maybe as a way of avoiding the actual feeling of fear itself, which is also a form of avoidance.
He suggests describing your edge out loud, maybe to a trusted friend, using phrases like, "I'm too lazy to put in the extra hours," or "I'm afraid of failing if I really go for it." What's the purpose of saying it out loud like that?
It's about honoring your edge, acknowledging it without judgment, and being impeccably honest with yourself and others. He argues that a fearful man who knows he is fearful is far more trustable than one who denies his fear.
And even more trustable.
Is the fearful man who consciously leans into his fear. That man is more trustworthy and more inspirational. The practice becomes live with your lips pressed against your fears, kissing your fears. Neither pulling back into safety nor aggressively trying to obliterate them, but engaging with them directly, intimately.
Which flows perfectly into the very next principle. Lean just beyond your edge. So once you know your edge, the goal is to constantly nudge it forward. How does he define optimal growth in that context?
Optimal growth, he says, is found just beyond his edge, his capacity, his fear. And it's a constant, continuous practice, not pushing so little that you're just being lazy or staying comfortable, but also not pushing so far beyond your edge that you stress yourself unnecessarily or you simply can't metabolize the experience, you just break.
So is finding that sweet spot a challenge?
Exactly. The insight here is that insecurity often leads men to either take the easy path, staying way inside the comfort zone, or the extreme path, trying to leap way too far, both of which are ways of avoiding your actual condition, which he says is often simply fear itself.
So fear needs to become your friend. That's a key idea. And staying with the fear, staying at your edge, allows real transformation to occur. It sounds like an ongoing dance with discomfort, not trying to eliminate it.
It absolutely is. It's not about becoming fearless in the sense of never feeling fear, but becoming courageous in the face of fear.
Yep.
This creates an alive and humble spontaneity that prepares you for the unknown. You consciously step beyond the perceived solid ground of security with an open heart, right into the space of unknowingness, raw and awake. It's about owning your fear and actively leaning into it in every aspect of your life, starting now, transforming it from a barrier into the actual pathway for growth.
Okay, so beyond this deep personal integrity and growth, Deida talks a lot about integrity in relationships, especially with women. And one of his most challenging assertions, I think, for many people is your purpose must come before your relationship. That really goes against a lot of conventional wisdom, doesn't it? How many of us are taught to prioritize our partners above everything?
It certainly does challenge that conventional wisdom head on. The core idea he presents is that every man knows, deep down, that his highest purpose in life cannot be reduced to any particular relationship. He argues quite forcefully that if a man prioritizes his relationship over his highest purpose, he fundamentally weakens himself, deserves the universe, and cheats his woman of an authentic man. He's not giving her the fullness of who he could be.
Wow. And he even makes this very direct challenge, asking men to. Admit to yourself that if you had to choose one or the other, the perfect intimate relationship or achieving your highest purpose in life, you would choose to succeed at your purpose. He says just knowing that about yourself often relieves much pressure.
It's a confronting thought experiment, but he sees it as crucial for authenticity to one's masculine essence. Furthermore, he emphasizes quality over quantity when it comes to attention given to a woman. He says, "Your woman will be more fulfilled with 30 minutes a day of undivided attention and ravishing love than she will with a few hours of your weak and divided presence."
So if your heart isn't fully in it because you're distracted by a lack of purpose, she feels that absence anyway.
Exactly. She'll feel the lack of full presence, and it ultimately diminishes the connection, even if you're physically there for hours. Your deepest gift is your full presence, rooted in purpose.
This leads to another challenging point, especially for men who really value family, perhaps above all else. Don't use your family as an excuse. How does this connect back to maintaining a man's purpose without seeming, selfish?
Right, it's a delicate balance. The core idea is that while full participation in family life is crucial and absolutely non-negotiable for a superior man, if he gives up his deepest purpose to do so, ultimately, everyone suffers. This act of self-resignation, he argues, communicates profound weakness that permeates the family dynamic.
How so? What are the consequences he points to?
Well, your woman might end up taking charge more than she truly wants to, having to provide the direction you're lacking. Your children might challenge your discipline more because they sense your own lack of authentic self-discipline and core direction. The household can become a testing ground for your resolve, which is weakened.
So this goes back to that primary asymmetry you mentioned earlier. The priority of the feminine is the flow of love in relationship. The priority of the masculine is the mission which leads to freedom.
Exactly that. While ultimately love and freedom might be two sides of the same coin, the journey and the core drive are different for each essence, according to Deida. He also stresses that children learn primarily by osmosis. A short period with a father who is absolutely present, full in love, undivided inside, and sure of his mission in life will affect them much more positively, he argues, than much more time spent with an ambiguous, purpose-lost father who feels resentful or unfulfilled.
So it's about the quality of presence, not just quantity of time. He even suggests practical alternatives like timeshare, child-caring, or hiring help if needed, rather than permanently compromising purpose.
Yes, finding creative solutions rather than accepting defeat on the purpose front. The call to action is strong. Discover your deepest purpose, commit yourself completely to its process, and find a way to embrace your family as you do so. No chronically unfinished business or inner ambiguity allowed if you want to live fully. A strong, unwavering stance is required.
Indeed. And this commitment to purpose and self-trust extends directly into how a man interacts with women in decision-making situations. Chapter 6. Never change your mind just to please a woman. The core idea seems to be that while a man should always openly consider a woman's perspective if she offers one,
Absolutely, listen openly.
his final decision must be his own, rooted in his deepest wisdom and clarity, not just an attempt to make her happy or avoid conflict.
That's precisely it. And the consequences of not doing this, of pleasing her over your own truth, it seems like it would create a subtle lack of trust, even if it looks like harmony on the surface.
He argues it absolutely does. He warns that everyone will feel your lack of authenticity. Friends, children, colleagues, and especially your partner, they might not be able to pinpoint it, but they feel it. And most importantly, your own inauthenticity will burden your capacity to act with clarity in the future.
And there's a practical problem too, right? If you just follow her suggestion to please her.
Right. If she turns out to be wrong, you'll likely feel resentment, and maybe even blame her. If she turns out to be right, you'll still feel disempowered because you denied yourself the opportunity to act from your own core truth and learn from your own choices. You lose either way, in a sense.
So the practices. Be open to changing your feeling based on whatever your woman might reveal, and then make your own decision, based on your deepest intuitive wisdom and knowledge. It's about listening fully, integrating what resonates, but then leading from your own core.
That's the balance. This attitude of self-trust, even if you end up being wrong sometimes and having to learn from it, is what truly engenders others' trust in you over the long term. You're taking full responsibility for your choices.
Which, in his view, strengthens your capacity for future action and leadership in your own life. It builds that core integrity.
This integrity also extends, interestingly, to how men interact with each other.
No.
Chapter 10. Enjoy your friend's criticism. Now, that's definitely not something most of us are taught to do. Most people actively avoid criticism.
Right. But Deida frames it as a crucial measure of masculine capacity. He says, a man's capacity to receive another man's direct criticism is a measure of his capacity to receive masculine energy.
Receive masculine energy. How so?
Well, if a man reacts to direct, honest feedback from another man like a woman, and he uses that phrase specifically to mean getting hurt, defensive, withdrawing, it signals, in his view, an unresolved issue with his own father or with masculine energy in general, an inability to fully receive blunt truth offered, hopefully, in love for the sake of growth.
Okay, so he actually recommends regular, weekly meetings with close men friends to discuss life, fears, challenges. And these friends shouldn't just listen passively. They should offer a behavioral experiment, a concrete action to pop you out of your rut. He gives an example about confronting an affair fantasy head-on.
Yes, the idea is that brutal honesty is key. Good friends should not tolerate mediocrity in one another. They should honor your fears, yes, but in love, continue to goad you beyond them without pushing you over the edge.
He calls this the father force.
Yeah, the father force at play among peers, providing the stark light of love uncompromised by a fearful Mr. Nice act by which you can see the direction you really want to go. He strongly emphasizes choosing friends who are themselves living at their edge, who are also challenging themselves to grow. Otherwise, they'll just reinforce your comfort zone.
Okay, so we've explored the inner landscape of the superior man, his purpose, his authenticity, his relationship with himself and other men. But Deida then takes us into perhaps the most dynamic and often the most challenging arena, how these principles manifest in intimate relationships with women. This brings us to part 2, dealing with women, navigating polarity and intimacy. And he starts right off with another potentially tough one. Stop hoping for your woman to get easier. That sounds, well, like a recipe for resignation for some guys.
It might sound that way initially, but it's actually quite the opposite of resignation. It requires a significant mindset shift, though. The core idea is that a woman often seems to test her man's capacity to remain unperturbed in his truth and purpose. These tests, as he calls them, they aren't meant to be malicious or hurt him. They are her way, often unconscious, to feel his freedom and depth of love, to know that he is trustable.
So her complaints, her challenges, maybe changing her mind constantly, doubting him, distracting him, even seeming to undermine his purpose sometimes, these are not true criticism, but a test of your Shivahood. Okay. What is Shivahood in this context, and why is this continuous testing actually a positive thing for her from this perspective?
Shiva, in Hindu mythology, represents the divine masculine archetype, embodying qualities like being unperturbable, totally loving, fully present, and all-pervading. She wants to feel that core strength in you, that you cannot be easily knocked off course, that your purpose and your presence are unwavering, even amidst her emotional storms. Her negativity in this view isn't really about the surface issue. It's her deeper desire to feel Shiva, to feel your unwavering strength and humor in the face of chaos.
So if you, as the man, are aligned with your mission, you're essentially happy from within, and her tests aren't personal attacks seeking validation from her.
Exactly. They're more like her profound seeking of your strength, your presence, your humor, so that she can relax knowing you've got it handled, that the center holds.
And the outcome. When she feels that strength and humor from him, she can relax and surrender into the polarity of man and woman. And he explicitly states, it never ends, this is the secret, meaning the tests are continuous, and so is the opportunity for growth and deeper connection through them.
Precisely. It's an ongoing dance, a dynamic relationship, not a static state to be achieved. And integral to that dance, in stark contrast to the masculine need for challenge, is praise her, chapter 17. This is a really different mode of interaction than how many men are often conditioned, especially in competitive environments. The core idea is simple but powerful. The masculine grows by challenge, but the feminine grows by praise.
So a man's default habit of challenging others, maybe like in boot camp or on a sports team, just doesn't work effectively for nurturing the feminine essence in his partner.
He argues it absolutely doesn't. In fact, it can be counterproductive. He says, praise her freely. He calls praise literal food for feminine qualities. You praise what you want to see grow in her, even if it's just a small flicker of it, because praise nurtures and expands that quality.
He gives some examples, right? Like saying, you're so beautiful when you smile is far more effective than pointing out, you're so ugly when you frown.
Exactly. Or noticing how sexy she is when she sweats in her leotards versus hinting, hope you don't gain more weight. His concise advice is crystal clear. Praise works, information doesn't. Praise motivates, challenge doesn't. And he suggests practicing it consciously 5 to 10 times a day. Find genuine things to praise.
That's a very practical, actionable piece of advice. But, okay, what about when things get difficult? When she's really in a bad mood, maybe being critical or withdrawn? The next chapter is tolerating her leads to resenting her. What's the problem with just tolerating it, riding it out? And what's the alternative, he suggests?
Deida says a man starts to resent his woman when he is too afraid, weak, or unskilled to penetrate her moods and tests into love. He just tolerates the negativity instead of actively transforming the energy. The insight here is that her bitchy and complaining moodiness, as he puts it, is often a reflection of her lack of being penetrated by love. It's her emotional test of your capacity to open her.
So the practice isn't to talk about it endlessly or analyze it like it's a logical problem to be solved.
No, definitely not. He says don't analyze it. Instead, participate in it. Bloom her into fullness. Move her body with your body. Open her heart with your humor. Penetrate her closure with your fearless presence. He uses the analogy of her being like a flower that needs watering with love and presence, not an engine that needs a carburetor adjustment with logic.
Okay, so assume she needs love. Assume she's testing your strength and embody your masculine thunderbolt of love to brighten her darkness in a way she perhaps can't do for herself in that moment. It's an energetic engagement, not a verbal debate or a therapy session.
Exactly. It's about shifting the energy through presence and action, not getting bogged down in the content of the mood.
This connects interestingly to another principle: don't force the feminine to make decisions. Why is that seen as abandoning responsibility for a man, especially in an age where, shared decision-making is often held up as the ideal?
Well, by always expecting his woman to make her own decisions on everything, big and small, Deida argues, a man abandons responsibility and actually withholds his masculine gift of clear direction and perspective. This then forces her, often unconsciously, to magnify her own masculine to provide that direction herself.
And the consequence of that, if he's consistently indecisive or just defers to her.
The consequence is that she may become chronically sharp, angular, and distrustful of his love. She might cease being able to fully surrender into her feminine softness and radiance because she has to become her own man, in a sense, to keep things moving. This again leads to depolarization and less passion.
So saying something like, whatever you want to do is fine with me, is more like a friend's statement, not a lover's offering of guidance. And feminine decisions tend to be based on what feels right in the moment, while masculine decisions are often more focused on outcomes and providing a clear direction.
That's the key distinction he makes. He uses the analogy of the feminine being like the ocean, fast, powerful, full of currents, but with no single direction. The masculine, on the other hand, builds canals, dams, and boats, providing structure, purpose, a single goal. Trying to make the ocean act like a ship by forcing her to constantly analyze her heart's emotions logically, he says, turns her into a swimming pool. Safer, maybe more predictable, but far less alive.
So what's the practice then? Never say, do whatever you want.
Pretty much. Instead, offer your clear perspective on all decisions, even small ones like which shoes should I wear. Let her know your preference or viewpoint, while also reassuring her you love her regardless of her ultimate choice. Encourage her to trust her feelings, absolutely, but provide your masculine input and direction as a gift for her consideration. Don't leave her adrift.
This book also explores the real paradox of desire and trust in relationships, which is truly fascinating territory. One of the most counterintuitive points, I think, is what she wants is not what she says.
Wow.
If taken literally, that sounds like a recipe for constant confusion and mind reading.
It definitely can be, if misunderstood. The core idea isn't that women are intentionally deceitful. It's that sometimes a woman's stated request is actually a test of your strength, your integrity, your unwavering purpose, rather than a literal desire for the thing she's asking for. If you just obey blindly without checking in with your own core, she'll be disappointed because you've essentially failed her deeper test of your masculine integrity.
He shares that really vivid anecdote, doesn't he? About the man making love outdoors with his wife.
Yes, she's urging him, begging him to ejaculate inside her. He does, thinking he's pleasing her. And she's immediately upset, saying she actually wanted him to be strong enough not to, despite what she said.
That's a perfect illustration of the paradox. So her ultimate desire, underneath the service request, is to feel your full consciousness, your trustable integrity, your unshakable love, and your confidence in your mission. And she'll sometimes distract you from your truth with requests or complaints just to see if you hold fast to it.
Exactly. And how you respond reveals your depth. A weak man, Deida says, gets angry and frustrated, asking, why don't you just tell me what you really want? A superior man, however, understands that she is, in these moments, an incarnation of the divine feminine, that intuitively settles for nothing less than the divine masculine unwavering presence and truth.
So the action is always
act to maintain your fullest consciousness. Don't just take her requests at face value. Pause, check with your deepest wisdom, your purpose, then act from that place. And, he adds, if she's consistently disappointed by you acting from your deepest truth, then perhaps you shouldn't be with her, because that indicates a fundamental incompatibility at a core level.
And it's not just about her words, her direct requests, it's also about her complaints. Chapter 31. Her complaint is content-free. Again, this sounds like it requires a very different way of listening, looking beyond the surface issue she's bringing up.
It absolutely does. The core idea here is that the thing your woman is complaining about is rarely the thing she is complaining about. The specifics, like the rent being due or the garage not being cleaned, are to him often just warning bells. They're reflections of a deeper feeling or lack she senses in your masculine capacity to direct your life with clarity, purpose, integrity, and wisdom.
So the specifics are almost tangential. They reflect her mood more than the actual problem.
Often, yes. They reflect her present mood more than a careful observation, he says. For example, if you said you'd clean the garage and then didn't follow through, her complaint isn't really about the state of the garage itself. It's about your lack of integrity, your failure to follow through with your word. It weakens her trust in your deeper masculine core. She feels let down and might subtly harden herself in response.
Because she's attracted to that clarity and integrity in a man.
Exactly. Just as a man is often attracted to a woman's feminine radiance, a woman is fundamentally attracted to a man's masculine clarity, direction, integrity, and presence. If she feels she constantly has to supply the masculine direction for the both of you, her own feminine radiance diminishes, she feels stressed, and the polarity fades.
So the action for the man is to listen to her complaints more as an oracle than as an advisor.
Wow.
Yeah. Her complaints, in this view, can actually reveal your unconscious habits that prevent your fullest awakening. He even makes the incredibly potent statement that her bag under your woman's eyes and the lines in her face may reveal much about how clearly you are living your highest purpose. It connects your inner state directly to her well-being and appearance.
That's a profound and perhaps confronting connection to draw. And speaking of importance, another chapter title that jumps out is, She Doesn't Really Want to Be Number One. This seems to fly in the face of how many men try to make their woman feel special, like she's the absolute center of their world. It certainly does challenge that common approach. The core idea Deida presents is that while a woman may seem to want to be the most important thing in your life, if she actually is, if you put her above your purpose, she ultimately feels that her man is dependent, needy, and she feels smothered by his neediness and clinging. It collapses the polarity.
So the insight is that she actually wants him totally dedicated to his highest purpose and also to love her fully. It's a both hand, not an either.
Exactly. He suggests she would actually feel deflated, emptied, let down if he genuinely chose her over, say, his mission for the freedom of mankind or whatever his highest calling is. She wants to be chosen by a man who is himself anchored in something larger than just her.
So men shouldn't try to substitute default responsibilities like doing chores or just being physically present for that true higher purpose, thinking that fulfills his side.
Right. That's not the same thing. He states, you can only be a superior professional, father, husband, and friend when you are living these relationships as gifts given from your core. That is, originating from your deepest purpose and overflowing from there. If you live from that deep purpose, she will feel the truth of your choices. Even if she doesn't always like them on a superficial level, like maybe you have to work late on your mission, she will deeply love them, and she will love you for having the courage to live your truth.
This sounds like it requires a constant dance in the present moment, a perpetual responsiveness to the energy between you, which leads to, your excellent track record is meaningless to her. Okay, wait, so my past successes, my history of being a good partner, all the brownie points I thought I earned, they don't count for much in the heat of a difficult moment.
To the feminine essence, he argues, largely no. A man's track record means nothing. Her feeling in the moment right now is what primarily counts. For getting one dinner date after months of being the perfect partner, your past success means nothing to her present feeling of your failure.
That's so different from how men often relate to each other, right? Where a good track record builds trust and forgiveness.
Very different. Men tend to forgive a man with a great track record who makes a mistake. But for women, he argues, the now is paramount. One wrong word, one moment of being checked out can collapse her feeling of connection, regardless of the 5 hours or 5 years of perfection that preceded it.
Okay, so if building up credit doesn't work, what's the immediate action a man should take when he messes up or she's upset? Instead of justifying or pointing to the past?
Instantly shift the energy. Don't argue about the past. Don't justify. Assume happiness. Shock her with your love. Make her smile and laugh with your humor. He suggests playful, bold actions like lick her neck or lift her off the ground and pretend you're King Kong, something unexpected that breaks the negative state. This, he claims, wipes the emotional slate clean, making the momentary failure as irrelevant as the past successes were, simply by shifting the present energetic state between you.
And finally, in this section about dealing with women, it circles back beautifully to direction. She wants to relax in the demonstration of your direction. What does that mean for a man truly being in charge, in the Deida sense?
The core idea here is that a woman can truly relax and trust you to take charge, allowing her to soften into her feminine if she feels you have a clear, unwavering direction. This applies across the board, financially, sexually, emotionally, spiritually.
And the consequence if you don't have that clear direction, if you flounder or seem ambiguous.
If you flounder, she will automatically begin directing her own life, and probably yours too. She'll have to step up and provide the masculine direction herself, developing her own masculine edge out of necessity, and as a result, her radiance will diminish. She can't fully relax into her feminine essence.
So if she becomes stressed, taut, and emotionally angular, that could actually be a signal that she's animating excess masculine direction because of your irresponsibility or lack of clarity in some area.
Yeah,
That's a tough feedback loop to acknowledge, that her state might reflect your failing.
it is tough, but he presents it as a kind of gift, a mirror. Her taking on excess masculine energy in areas where you are ambiguous, maybe about finances, or where the relationship is going, or your spiritual path, means she cannot fully relax into her feminine softness. This becomes a clear indicator for a man to step up, clarify his own direction, and provide that stable, unwavering presence she can relax into.
Okay, let's move into working with polarity and energy. This section seems to explore the deeper dynamics of attraction itself, starting with your attraction to the feminine is inevitable. What's his perspective on that innate masculine draw? Is it just about sex? And how does he differentiate it?
No, it's definitely not just about sex, though that's part of it. The core idea is that men with a masculine essence are fundamentally attracted to forms of feminine energy. Yes, that includes radiant women, but also, interestingly, things he mentions like beer, music, nature, things that provide a feeling of fullness, flow, or relaxation.
So it's a broader energetic principle.
Exactly. He says it's natural, but healthy. Feeling shame about this attraction, he argues, actually reveals discomfort with your own masculine essence. This fundamental attraction is actually an aspect of the same desire that will ultimately lead you towards spiritual freedom. It's an essential gesture of your heart, your desire for love and unity, manifesting in the world of form.
So it's not just a physical urge. It's a deeper energetic pull, a kind of longing for connection and completeness that shows up as attraction.
Precisely. And he makes a really key distinction here. Sexual attraction is different from needing to have sex. The ingrealizing, that feeling of attraction, is often choiceless. It just happens. Intimacy, however, is a conscious choice. He says a radiant woman's presence can fill your whole day with delight, or even transport you to an enchanted paradise without any need for physical intimacy.
So what's the practice then, when you feel that attraction?
Relax into the thrill. Don't tense up or feel guilty. Let her energy move through your body like a deep massage. Breathe it in fully, down to your toes. He advises not staring or necessarily interacting, but simply allowing the energy itself to move freely within you. Receive her vision as a blessing, as fuel for your own life and purpose.
This leads into another important choice related to attraction. Choose a woman who is your complementary opposite. How does this relate back to maintaining that vital sexual polarity we discussed earlier?
Well, if you are very masculine in your essence, he says, you'll naturally be most attracted to and best complemented by a woman who is very feminine in her essence. She will complement his energy and create the strongest polarity.
And he addresses the whole package here, doesn't he? He acknowledges that a very feminine women can sometimes seem challenging.
Yes, he's very direct about it. He says very feminine women can sometimes seem bonkers or crazy, maybe saying one thing and then another, using words you wouldn't trust to remain true for an afternoon. But, he points out, they also move their body in a way that drives you wild. There's an untamed energy there.
He seems to almost celebrate this fluidity, this unpredictability. For her, he says, the masculine grid of words and events is less relevant than the fluidity of relationship and feeling. She makes no apologies for their oceanic depth and riptides of emotion.
That's exactly where the polarity thrives, in that difference. And he issues a very clear warning here. False neutralization or depolarization of relationships, trying to make your opposite more like you, is one of the main reasons that couples break up. You shouldn't try to change her irritating feminine ways, he advises, but instead learn to cultivate the depth and rejuvenative power of her feminine blessings.
He frames the feminine essence as an almost infinite energy source.
Yes, an infinite source of love, inspiration, and power, both physically and spiritually. Women in this view are often more transparent to the flow of their hearts, uncontrolled and undirected by goals and structure in the way masculine essence often is. And men are deeply attracted to her bodily expressed love and ecstasy. He even points to examples like temple dancers or pornography capturing aspects of this raw feminine expression.
So the action for the man is to Learn to be turned on by her dance of anger as much as by her slinky purr. To embrace her dark and light sides, seeing them all as part of her full, expressive, and ultimately attractive nature.
Yes, it definitely takes time, patience, and strength to develop that capacity, but he argues it's essential for a passionate, polarized intimacy that lasts. Which brings us to another practical point. Know what is important in your woman. He advises men not to expect their woman to be everything: business partner, best friend, co-parent, and passionate lover, all rolled into one without distinction.
So if you're looking for all those different roles in one person and treat her the same way in all of them, that can actually neutralize the sexual passion. It flattens the dynamic.
Exactly. He argues that sexual polarity and attraction will diminish if you try to make one person fulfill all these functional roles without specifically prioritizing and nurturing the unique purpose of your intimate romantic connection. If you do, you'll likely begin eyeing other women for that missing rejuvenative feminine delight, and your primary intimacy will slide into comfortable domesticity where, as he puts it, talk replaces tumble.
Because men with masculine essence need that feminine energy refresh.
Yes, he says they need frequent refreshment by the power of strong feminine energy. And while other things, beer, golf, massages, can provide some temporary relief or distraction, few things can arouse you as deeply in heart and body as the uncompromised force of feminine sexuality offered by your radiant woman in love.
So the key is to really clarify your intimacy's purpose. If it's for that passionate transmission of love, rejuvenative healing of sexual energy, and the cultivation of heart, then don't try to force her into purely functional desexed roles or inadvertently squash the fullness of her feminine energy by treating her like just another buddy or business partner all the time.
That's the core message there. If your relationship becomes solely about managing daily duties and logistics, it risks losing its vital animating force, the very passion that likely sustained it in the first place.
Okay, now for another chapter that often sparks debate. You will often want more than one woman. What exactly does he mean by this? And how does a superior man handle this desire, especially given that Deida generally seemed to champion deep, committed intimacy?
Right, it seems contradictory at first glance. The core idea here is that any man with a strong masculine sexual essence will desire sexual variety, even if he is deeply in love with and committed to one partner. He states this desire is not a reflection of any lack in your intimacy. It is a reflection of your nature as a masculine sexual being. It's innate.
Okay, but crucially, he makes a distinction. This desire is not an excuse for acting on it indiscriminately, right? It's not a green light for promiscuity.
Absolutely not. That's the critical distinction. Desire, he explains, can come from many sources. Maybe addiction, maybe simple biology, maybe cultural conditioning, or maybe even just a genuinely open and appreciative heart. The crucial part is how one chooses to respond to that desire. You need to discriminate the source of your desire.
So the response depends on your ultimate purpose in life. If your highest purpose is simply seeking pleasure, then, he says quite bluntly, screw as many as you want. But if your purpose is higher, like liberating yourself and others through love and consciousness, then you do whatever magnifies the love and freedom in your life and in your primary relationship. And he emphasizes integrity. Self-discipline is not self-suppression. It's about your highest, most conscious desires and commitments governing your lesser, more fleeting impulses.
And he adds a really important prerequisite too, doesn't he? About the state of your current relationship. Yes, a crucial one. If your current intimacy lacks deep communion, rejuvenating passion, and spiritual happiness, then, he says, you have not passed the test yet. In that case, you must discipline your desires for other partners and focus all your energy on making your primary relationship vibrant and fulfilling first. Don't seek outside what you haven't cultivated within.
What about the specific energy he attributes to young women? Chapter 27 states they offer you a special energy. This can also be a very tricky subject in modern discourse, easily misinterpreted.
It is, and needs careful handling. The core idea he presents is that youth in a woman often signifies radiant, unobstructed, and refreshing feminine energy. This specific quality, he suggests, can be particularly rejuvenative for a masculine man's energy system.
So the insight is that uncompromised, youthful, feminine energy turns you on and opens your heart. You might feel happier around young women, more energetic, alive, loving.
That's what he posits. He acknowledges the cultural distortion that immediately reduces this feeling to a purely sexual thing, but he insists it's often more of a whole-body transmission, a kind of energetic or even spiritual rejuvenation, not just physical desire. He notes that in other cultures, young women were sometimes honored for this very quality.
So the action he recommends is to Honor the heart rejuvenative gift of a young woman without violating this honor by imposing your sexual desire on her, and to circulate any sexual desire internally rather than needing to act on it externally.
Precisely. The practice is to breathe in her fragrance or energy, relax, let your heart open, allow love to radiate from you towards the world, maintain respectful formality in interactions, and consciously use the energy she gives you, that feeling of aliveness, in your own service to others. Channel it into your work, your art, your primary relationship. It's about receiving inspiration without needing possession or physical intimacy, transforming raw attraction into creative life force.
This idea of different energies extends further in Chapter 28. Each woman has a temperature that can heal or irritate you. What on earth does he mean by temperature here? Like literal temperature?
Not literal temperature. He means women have different energetics or archetypal temperatures. Think cooling versus hot. He gives examples like the stereotype of an icy blonde, cooling, versus a fiery redhead, hot. These represent different core energetic qualities that affect your taste and your own energetic needs at different times.
Okay, so a hot woman might motivate an easygoing, perhaps lazy man, and a cooling woman could help balance a quick-tempered, maybe overly intense man.
That's the idea. They offer complementary balancing energies, and crucially, your needs for these different energetic temperatures may change over time. This depends on your health, your lifestyle, the intensity of your work, your current emotional state.
And this fluctuation in need can lead to confusion, he says, maybe even relationship issues if misunderstood.
Yes. For example, if you're completely burnt out from intense, high-pressure work, your normally attractive hot wife might suddenly feel irritating or overwhelming. You might find yourself drawn to the cooling, calming energy of a friend or colleague. The key action is to understand what is happening energetically, and not mistake a temporary changing energy need for a fundamental reason to end a marriage or relationship.
So how do you manage that changing need?
He suggests finding balance through other means. Maybe adjusting your diet, changing your environment, like seeking nature for cooling, or through non-sexual reception of the needed energy, like getting a massage from someone with the right energetic quality. He strongly warns against confusing these temporary energy needs with a commitment in love. He says energy needs are relatively easy to balance, if understood, whereas superficial choices based on fleeting needs often lead to regret. True fulfillment, he consistently repeats, comes from persistent commitment to the practice of love within your chosen intimacy.
This deep dive really encourages us to look at the shadow self, doesn't it? The less comfortable, less socially acceptable aspects of our nature. Moving into the dark side and deeper practices, Deida explores aspects that might feel uncomfortable but are, to him, absolutely essential to his concept of the superior man. First up, you are always searching for freedom.
Yes, this is a core masculine drive for him. The central idea is that the essential masculine ecstasy is in the moment of release from constraint into absolute, unbounded freedom.
He gives some really interesting examples, doesn't he? Orgasm, which the French call la petite mort, or the little death.
Right. Also intense sports, like breaking through opponents to score, even the intensity of war, big financial killings, philosophical breakthroughs, and ultimately spiritual ego death. All these, he argues, involve confronting death in some form, the death of limits, the death of the small self. This confrontation is, for him, the ultimate masculine fear and the gateway to ultimate freedom.
So spiritual freedom also requires facing those deep fears, letting go of limits, essentially dying to your need to be a separate self. He contrasts this drive for freedom with the core feminine drive.
Yes, very explicitly. The feminine essence, he explains, primarily seeks love, not freedom in that same empty sense. Her bliss is found in fullness, connection, being filled with love, not in emptiness or release from constraint. Her primary means is surrender into love, not release from limits.
And this difference explains, he suggests, why a woman might be upset when a man just wants to roll over and snore after sex.
Exactly. He has achieved his momentary stress-free emptiness, his release. She was likely hoping for continued connection, fullness, and love through the sexual experience. Ultimately, though, he says both paths, the masculine search for freedom and the feminine search for love, lead to the same destination, the unbounded and infinite ground of being who you are, which is both absolute love and freedom. They just approach it from different directions.
This leads us into a very challenging chapter. Own your darkest desires. Okay, that phrase alone can sound alarming. How does he carefully differentiate something like ravish from rape? And what exactly does he mean by dark masculine desire? This needs careful unpacking.
It absolutely does, and he is careful, though provocative.
Oh,
The
yeah.
core idea is that if a man disowns his dark masculine desire for freedom, that intense drive to penetrate, to break through limits, then he kinks the hose of his masculine force. That powerful energy doesn't just disappear, it goes underground, gets disconnected from his heart, and can then manifest in unloving ways like controlling behaviors or fantasies of domination that lack genuine connection or care.
So the key distinction between ravish and rape for him is,
Love. Absolutely, unequivocally love. The desire to ravish, he clarifies, is the desire to break through a woman's resistances, to open her heart and body into ecstatic loving. It's about persistent loving presence that helps her melt her own barriers. He acknowledges that both masculine essence, the desire to penetrate barriers, and feminine essence, the desire to be lovingly forced to surrender, can have these intense, dark desires within the context of love. But the crucial difference, the absolute non-negotiable, is love is the guiding force, ensuring everything is consensual, safe, and ultimately in service of deeper connection and opening, not violation.
so it's about possessing immense power and intensity, but channeling it through love and consciousness, not letting it run rampant destructively. It's about courage and spiritual guts, not violence or coercion.
Exactly. It's about being fearless enough, loving enough to break through emotional and energetic barriers within a loving, trusting connection. He connects this directly to spirituality. Sexual energy, he argues, is the root of your bodily force of life. A fear of yielding fully in sexual love with your woman mirrors a deeper fear of yielding into divine freedom, into losing the ego. Men might be willing to lose themselves temporarily in controllable ways, like sports or a quick orgasm, but they fear losing themselves for real in deep love ecstasy.
So what's the practice he suggests here?
When making love, consciously feel through your own physical and emotional boundaries into her. Try to dissolve your sense of separateness. Become intensely aware of her experience. Love her with more abandon than you've ever allowed yourself before. Allow your entire masculine desire to manifest, dark and light, but always guided by love. And crucially, allow her energies, her responses, to take you to new places too. It's a mutual dissolution.
And reclaiming this dark masculine loving, as he calls it,
It leads to spiritual guts, he says. The courage to face ego death, to unkink the hose of your masculine spiritual force, and ultimately to yield consciously into the boundless, unknowable infinity.
And what about the killer in you?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 37. She wants the killer in you. Again, this phrase is potentially jarring, sounds violent. What is this referring to metaphorically? This needs clear explanation, too.
Yes, absolutely metaphorical and needs that clarity. Deida uses killer here as a symbol of ultimate fearlessness, specifically the capacity to transcend the feel of death for the sake of love. She is turned on by this deep fearlessness in a man and turned off by his fear, like if he asks her to kill a cockroach or check for a burglar downstairs. It signals a deeper lack of core fearlessness that she needs to feel safe and trust him fully.
So it's about the dark masculine energy of the warrior being essential, not actual violence.
Precisely. He claims today's culture often suppresses this warrior energy, leading to what he calls wimpy men and overly polite women. But beneath that surface veneer, he argues, lies the potential for the wrathful goddess who would chop the head off of every mediocre New Age man, and the warrior of love who would ravish his woman into bliss. These are intense archetypes of fearless love.
So in practice, it's about a man being willing and able to face her closure, her anger, her tension, without minimizing her force or backing down himself.
Yes, she wants to feel your persistence in loving so that her fury cannot turn you away. She wants you to stand strong in your love and presence and ravish her energetically and emotionally because you love her, unafraid of her dark energy, helping her open through it.
Why is this capacity so important to her, according to him?
Because this capacity to face her intensity without flinching is a sign of your overall ability to face death, to face the ultimate unknown. This makes you trustable as a man, both as a human warrior and as a spiritual warrior. It leads to humility, deep courage, and the willingness to open your heart completely. As he puts it, facing the potential burglar at night is only a sign to your woman that you are willing to lose everything into love. Willing to lose your separate self in devotion to love's unfolding.
This next point seems to tie in directly with that challenge. She needs your consciousness to match her energy. What does that mean for a man in the relationship in terms of his responsibility for meeting her intensity?
It means a man must be able to meet his woman with consciousness equivalent to her energy. Whatever energy she brings, anger, fear, chaos, joy, that you cannot match with your grounded presence and awareness, she will likely keep returning to, almost as if testing that specific capacity in you.
Can you give an example?
Sure, if you're consistently turned off by her anger and you withdraw or shut down whenever she expresses it, she'll probably keep returning to anger, unconsciously probing your capacity to meet it, hold it, and transform it into passion or deeper connection. Similarly, if you collapse or react with unlove when she questions your financial ability, she'll likely continue to question it, testing that particular weakness in your masculine core.
So her darkest moods are, in this framework, almost like an energetic gift. A test designed, maybe unconsciously, to help a man grow his capacity.
In Daida's framework, yes, that's precisely how it's presented. She will never trust your lighter masculine capacities, he says, until you have proven your darker masculine capacities, your ability to handle intensity with love. She intuitively knows your weaknesses. Her gift, in this sense, is to test you with her darkest moods until your consciousness is unperturbed by feminine challenge.
And the reward for meeting that challenge.
In response to your fearless consciousness, your unwavering, loving presence, she will naturally drench your world in love and light. She can finally relax and open fully because she feels completely safe and held.
Now let's shift to the nature of feminine attractiveness itself. Chapter 39. The feminine is abundant. How does he define this abundance? And why do some men seem to feel such a scarcity of feminine energy or connection in their lives?
He states it very simply: there is never a shortage of women or feminine energy. If a man feels a sense of starvation or scarcity regarding women or feminine connection, he is, in Daida's view, simply negating his relationship to the feminine principle itself, because life itself is the feminine. It's everywhere.
So your current feeling of isolation or weariness isn't because there's a lack out there.
No, it's due to refusing to embrace the energy and women around you right now. Feminine energy, he says, is filling your body with life in every single moment, through breath, through nature, through sensation, through interaction.
So the practice is to actively tune into that, to feel the present moment as if it were a woman.
Yes. Embrace it physically, breathe deeply into your senses, and consciously receive the feminine deliciousness of life itself. And do the same with actual human women you encounter. Receive their anger as a jolt of awakening energy. Receive their sexiness as a blessing of enlivenment. Your entire day, he suggests, can become a feast of plenty if you simply open yourself to receiving this abundant energy from all sources, not just searching for it in one specific person or outcome.
What about age? How does that factor in?
Yeah.
Chapter 40 is, allow older women their magic. How does he see their value beyond the typical societal perceptions, which often overemphasize youthful appearance?
While he acknowledges that men might be more instinctively physically drawn to young women due to their radiant, unobstructed, and refreshing feminine energy, Deida strongly emphasizes that true feminine radiance isn't just about youth, it's the shine of life force itself, revealing a state of being that is open, trusting, connected, and loving. And this deep beauty, this radiance, can actually be magnified, deepened, and glorified with age, bringing a different kind of potent magic and power.
He argues that if a man is disconnected from his own deep masculine core, he'll only see skin-deep beauty and thus contribute to the unhealthy social cult of youth.
Indeed. Older women, he explains, often gain significant psychic weight, deep wisdom, and powerful intuitive and healing capacities. They develop an ability to read signs of nature with great accuracy or sway events with almost shocking rein. And perhaps pointedly, they also will tolerate less of your bullshit.
Okay. So if your purpose is genuine growth,
Then a spiritually mature woman, he suggests, can be an excellent ally, precisely because she won't let you slather in your comfy habits of security and distraction. She will ruthlessly guide you back to your edge, your truth.
Now, for a very practical application for a man's own energy management, turn your lust into gifts. How does he propose to transform this raw sexual energy, which is often seen and maybe felt as just a physical urge needing release?
The core idea here is that sexual energy, which is often interpreted purely as lust, shouldn't just be fantasized about or discharged aimlessly. It should be actively circulated and transformed into creative fuel. Sexual desire is creation, he states emphatically. It inspires not just biological procreation, but all forms of artistic, social, and spiritual creativity. Women, in this sense, are often the muse that sparks a man's creative output.
So instead of just spurting it out, as he colorfully puts it, in spasms of thought or physical ejaculation, you learn to continually cultivate and magnify your inspiration.
How? The practice involves actually feeling the lust or desire when it arises, but instead of immediately acting on it or suppressing it, you breathe deeply and allow the feeling itself to magnify. Then you consciously circulate that energy throughout your entire body, bathing every cell. You inhale this potent energy into your heart and then consciously feel outward from your heart, feeling the world as if it were your lover. Offer that energy back out as a gift.
And the outcome of this practice
Is to convert the habitual tendency toward fantasy and lust into the force of inspiration. You allow women's natural sexiness and radiance to help you discover and give your gift to the world, rather than letting it simply beguile you into cycles of stimulation and depletion. You transform raw energy into purposeful action.
This active cultivation sounds like it can counteract that depolarization he warned about earlier. Chapter 42. Never allow your desire to become suppressed or depolarized. What are the consequences if this does happen in a long-term relationship, or even in a man's life generally? When the spark fades,
Denying or losing touch with that fundamental desire for the feminine, whether through conscious choice, neglect, or just dull familiarity signals depolarization even toward the world itself. When a man becomes depolarized, his woman often starts to look haggard and drawn and feels unravished because she's not receiving his potent, directed energy. He, in turn, becomes less attracted to her, and she becomes energetically darkened. It's a downward spiral that affects everything. He might also lose interest in his projects and career. A widespread sense of dullness and lack of vitality sets in.
and this is where the mediocre man, as he calls him, often just moves on to newness, a new woman, a new job, thinking the problem was the external thing, not his internal state.
That's right. Chasing novelty as a substitute for cultivating depth.
Mm-hmm.
But Deida says, it is not time that kills delight, but familiarity, neutralization, and lack of purpose. Your lack of desire is only that, a lack of desire. It's like two magnets that have lost their charge. They just don't attract anymore.
So the responsibility lies with the man to rekindle his own polarity.
Yes. A superior man assumes complete responsibility for the state of polarity in the relationship. Her dark mood is as ugly and repulsive to you as your ambiguity is to her. The action, when she seems withdrawn, dark, or downright ugly, is to assume she is a goddess and needs your divine invasion. Don't just cope or complain.
Divine invasion, what does that mean in practice?
It means treating her mood with the same ferocity of intent you might apply to a critical work project. Actively work to bring out her inner consort, the radiant feminine, by using teasing and sexually pregnant touch and gaze as you would your mistress. You actively repolarize the situation through your own directed energy and intention.
So the outcome is, instead of just coping with a dull reality, you take on the challenge of manifesting love in the dreary world and in your dreary woman. And he has that striking phrase, if she has yellow eyes and fangs, she still loves to dance. Your own freedom and strength determine whether her darkness drains you or whether she surrenders back into love in response to your presence.
Which brings us beautifully to the ultimate function of attraction in his model. Use her attractiveness as a slingshot through appearance. Chapter 43. The core idea here is that while women are a powerful source of inspiration and attraction, neither the world nor his woman is the purpose of his existence. The ultimate practice is always to use that attraction to feel through her, through all appearances, into the deeper source or very nature of reality itself.
So the intense desire, the play of your body wanting her body, is described as the most obvious hoax of ultimate fulfillment. He says, if you have ever gotten the woman you've wanted, you know that it's never as good as you hoped for, at least not for very long.
Right. Because your deepest need, he argues, is far deeper than any woman or any external thing can provide. It's what he calls the mirage of your own desire. You end up chasing your own tail. And much of the time, that tail looks suspiciously like a woman. You're really seeking union with the infinite, with your own deepest nature.
So the practice isn't to deny desire, but to intensify it.
Yes. Magnify your desiring to the brink of madness. Sustain it. Circulate it. Feel it fully. Embrace your woman. And give her what you want from her. Give it all to her so much that you can't tell who is who. Let the desire become so intense it dissolves the sense of separation.
Revealing that desire itself can be a doorway to deep oneness.
Exactly. Feel through her beauty, feel through her anger, feel through her darkness, all the way to the source. His whole relation to appearance, Deida concludes, is epitomized in his relation to women, either as obsession, distraction, or revelation. The superior man is not distracted or obsessed. Rather, his attention feels through the mirage of other, and he is released of need in the revelation of oneness.
Wow. Okay, now let's dive into the really practical body practices and the intimacy deep dive section of the book. This is where Deida gets very specific about sexual mastery, starting with chapter 44. Ejaculation should be converted or consciously chosen. This sounds like it goes directly against natural urges, or at least very common conditioning for men.
It definitely challenges common understanding and conditioning. The core idea isn't about achieving some kind of superhuman stamina purely for performance. He redefines premature ejaculation not just by timing, but functionally. If it habitually ends the act of loving before both you and your woman have fully opened yourselves emotionally and energetically, then it's premature in its effect. He claims that frequent unconscious ejaculation depletes and weakens you energetically.
Depletes you how? What are the consequences he points to?
He suggests it leads to a higher level of mediocrity in your daily life, diminishes courage to take risks, both big and small, causes physical lethargy, and means your unique gift will remain largely ungiven because you lack the sustained energy and focus.
And the impact on the woman in the relationship.
She feels your depletion, he argues. She senses your subtle lack of desire, not just for her, but for the world, for life itself. It also potentially deprives her of her fullest capacity of heart reception and expression, which for her requires fearless and unstressful genital penetration over a sustained period to truly relax and open layer by layer. She might subconsciously not trust you with her deepest self if she senses you're primarily focused on your own release rather than sustained connection.
He also notes that sometimes a woman might actually prefer quick ejaculation.
Yes, he acknowledges that sometimes a wounded woman might prefer you ejaculate quickly because it allows her to avoid opening fully, to stay protected. But he frames a man's masculine gift as the capacity to gently coax, humor, shock, and caress her love into melting through her layers of fear, which requires sustained presence, not quick release.
So it comes down to trust. When she feels your absolutely trustable nature of your loving, that you're truly present with her and not just self-absorbed in your own sensation, she'll trust you with her most vulnerable core. And if she ends up controlling your ejaculation, perhaps subtly, he argues she has conquered you energetically, and the world can do the same to you. You've lost your center.
Right. So for the superior man, ejaculation becomes a conscious choice, not just an uncontrollable moment that happens to him. He's dedicated to the magnification of love through sexuality. This conscious approach, leading to dissolution into love, he claims, so far exceeds the typical genital spurt that ejaculation is easily bypassed or postponed when desired, in service of deeper connection.
How does one even begin to achieve this kind of conscious control or conversion? He talks about practices like breathe down the front. What are these blocks he refers to in the front of the body?
Men, he observes, tend to accumulate blocks in the front of their body, running from the head, tense forehead jaw, through the tongue, throat, lump in throat, heart, closed chest, solar plexus, nervous stomach, navel, down to the genitals and perineum. These are areas of habitual tension, often from holding back emotions, self-protection, or stress. Maintaining a full and open front of the body, he says, is key to mastering the world and women, because it allows life energy, prana or chi, to flow freely.
And signs of tension are things like a tight stomach, that lump in the throat, feeling queasy, wrinkled forehead, tense jaw, maybe hunched posture. These constrict energy.
Exactly. They constrict the flow and limit your full presence and power. So the practice involves deep, relaxed breathing, specifically inhaling down the front line, first into the lower belly, allowing it to expand fully, then the upper belly, then finally the chest, gently stretching open the entire front of your body with the breath. You consciously breathe into any areas that feel tense or blocked.
And how does that transform the tension? He says tension is backed up energy.
Yes. Your tension is only the energy of a gift that has become backed up unexpressed. The cure is often to convert that self-concerned tension into outward service. Give yourself fully to others, whether it's mindfully doing the dishes or passionately building your business. Energetically, he even suggests using your open breath to help open others' tension. Imagining feeling their tightness, inhaling to open it in yourself, and exhaling to release it, pervading the room with your conscious loving.
And how does this apply sexually?
When embracing your woman, you consciously use your full open breath to help open her body and heart, filling her with your relaxed love energy, rather than projecting your own tension onto her.
This sounds like an important precursor to the most specific and perhaps most widely known practice associated with the book, ejaculate up the spine. This sounds like an internal, energetic process rather than just a physical technique.
It is entirely an internal, energetic redirection. The core idea is that the superior man's orgasm, when he chooses to have one in this way, more often explodes up his spine and into his brain, from there raining down through his body like an ambrosial bliss of rejuvenation, instead of primarily spewing out and depleting him.
And he again redefines prematurity here.
Yes, functionally. If ejaculation consistently signs the end to your session of loving before both you and your woman have fully opened yourselves, it's premature in its effect on the depth of intimacy.
So achieving this upward orgasm is about reconditioning from old habits. Habits often focused on tension, fantasy, and quick release, especially from solo practice. It's about seeking a different kind of satisfaction, maybe less peak-focused.
Precisely. It involves undoing those habits, learning to relax muscles during arousal, slowing and deepening the breath, keeping the belly and chest soft and open. Crucially, you must redirect your attention. Actively feel your partner more than your own sensations. Feel into and then through your partner, beyond just the physical sensations, connecting to infinity, to the shared space between you.
And the breath and energy flow are key.
Absolutely critical. Full, deep breathing is essential. Inhaling down the front, filling the belly and genitals with relaxed energy, then exhaling up your spine, drawing the energy towards your head. This prevents energy from getting stuck and building pressure solely in the head, which fuels fantasies, or solely in the genitals, which triggers the ejaculatory urge.
He offers a specific technique, too, involving pelvic floor muscles.
Yes, consciously contracting the pelvic floor muscles, the muscles around the genitals, anus, and perineum, and gently pulling that energy upward toward the spine. This is often combined with exhaling the breath and energy up the spine. If you feel very close to orgasm, he suggests stopping movement, contracting those muscles strongly, breathing forcefully up the spine, maybe even clenching fist teeth and looking upward to help redirect the energy away from the genitals.
And the outcome of mastering this
is described as intense bodily bliss and emotional openness, far beyond the quick pleasure and depleted peace of conventional orgasm. The orgasm shoots up your spine, feels rejuvenating, and helps dissolve the edges of the ego. It leads to the possibility of those relaxed, loving, watery hours of your fearless and unstressful genital penetration, because the driving need for release is transcended.
But he adds a crucial caveat, doesn't he, about love?
Yes. A very important one. He states, these techniques are less than effective unless you practice love during sex. Love is the essential ingredient. Love is the governor of energy. Your emotional disposition, your intention to connect and open matters far more than just mastering the technical exercises.
This brings us nicely into the dynamics of intimacy, starting with a return to that core concept. Take into account the primary asymmetry. What is this fundamental difference between masculine and feminine essence that needs acknowledging, even if both partners are equal as human beings?
The core idea is that while completely equal in value and being, masculine and feminine essences have this primary asymmetry in their core driving purpose and source of fulfillment. A man's core, generally speaking, is most deeply fulfilled by his mission and the pursuit of freedom. A woman's core is most deeply fulfilled by the flow of love and intimacy in relationship.
He contrasts them quite clearly, right? A woman can struggle with her career, but if love is flowing richly in her life, her core feels fulfilled, whereas a man can be showered with love all day.
But if his mission, his purpose, is obstructed or feels meaningless, he remains fundamentally uneasy and unfulfilled at his core.
And then he makes that very stark, potentially difficult statement again. For most men, their woman is replaceable. He immediately follows it with, this is harsh, but true.
How does he possibly reconcile that with deep love and unwavering commitment, which he also advocates?
It is indeed a provocative statement designed to confront, and he acknowledges its harshness. He explains it by linking it back to purpose. Because a man's highest priority in this model is his mission, he will always gravitate energetically to a woman whom he feels would most support his mission. If another woman seems to enliven him more, give him more energy for his work and life, he might feel a pull towards her. The replaceability refers more to the source of feminine energy supporting his purpose, not necessarily dismissing the unique value of the individual person he loves. It's a subtle but important distinction he makes.
He also points out the flip side, if a woman denies her feminine core. Yes, if a woman consistently rejects her deep feminine core desire for the flow of love, maybe by prioritizing purely masculine goals like career ambition above all else, she ultimately hurts herself internally. He argues that our culture has become so anti-feminine that many women are trying to deny their feminine core desires, leading to widespread unhappiness despite external success.
So a man shouldn't try to tell his partner that her life revolves too much around the relationship because for her feminine essence, holding love at the center is her authentic path.
Precisely. Don't try to make her more like you. And conversely, if you want her to wholeheartedly support your quest for freedom and purpose, you must honor and support her in her love of loving. Her devotion to love, he says, has a lot to teach you about presence and connection.
So it's about authenticity on both sides. Don't fake being solely relationship-focused if your core is purpose-driven. Live your highest goals with utter impeccability.
Exactly. When both partners honor this inherent asymmetry, they can focus on fulfilling their true core desires without resentment. Your alignment with purpose naturally makes you more present, loving, and humorous, which she receives as a gift. Her honoring her feminine core brings incredible energy, radiance, wisdom, and power to you and the relationship. It becomes a virtuous, mutually supportive cycle.
This implies a significant level of responsibility for the man within the dynamic. Chapter 48. You are responsible for the growth in intimacy. What does that entail beyond just taking responsibility for his own behavior? It sounds like more than just self-improvement.
Yes, it goes beyond just self-responsibility. There's a responsibility to give your gift actively within the relationship and serve each other in love. A man's specific gift in the dynamic, Deida explains, is to skillfully guide his woman out of her moods and into the openness of loving. Again, not as a therapist trying to fix her, but as an energetic wake-up call, using presence, humor, love. He states quite boldly, if it takes you more than 5 minutes to open her into love, you are probably talking too much and acting too little.
So his masculine gift is to know where you are, where you want to be, and what you need to do to get there. To provide that clarity and direction, not just for himself, but for the relationship's growth towards love.
Yes. If his vision for the relationship is just the daily grind, just maintaining the status quo, then you are failing your birthright to lead towards deeper love and consciousness. And a woman's corresponding gift is to help get the man into his body, into the present, into love, which connects you to your source. Her attractiveness, her presence, gives him energy, makes his whole body become like an erection in service of life.
It's a mutual exchange of gifts, but with different primary roles.
Yeah.
And without her gift, a man might just drift into abstraction.
Exactly. He may lose touch with the present, with your body and your woman, getting lost in tasks or thoughts. The man's purpose in the dynamic is to guide her moment by moment out of her moods and into the openness of loving. And then, day by day, to guide her life into greater degrees of divine love, even beyond the relationship. So if he can't or won't offer that loving guidance and direction, the book implies a very direct, challenging question. Why is she with you? What is your relationship all about? That really puts the onus on the man's role in cultivating depth.
It does, which leads directly to the next chapter. Insist on practice and growth. The core idea is that direction in life is a masculine priority, even in intimate relationship. A superior man, therefore, will not settle for less than the fullest incarnation of love possible within himself and the relationship. He actively leads towards that.
And if he doesn't lead, if he gets complacent or lazy in the relationship's growth,
then, Deida argues, she inevitably will. The less masculine direction you are living in truth, the more masculine direction your woman will take on to compensate. And this, once again, depolarizes the relationship. So, the consequence of the man's laziness or lack of direction is that she becomes chronically sharp, takes on that masculine edge out of necessity. And he, in turn, might become falsely receptive and agreeable, just going along to keep the peace, leading to a situation where both partners secretly feel like vomiting. That's a visceral description of a relationship that's gone stale and inauthentic.
it is. This chronically sharp state in a woman is presented as a clear sign that the man is not aligning both of your lives with the highest truth. He stresses again, you are entirely responsible for cutting through your own laziness, addictions, and unclarity. This isn't about blaming her, it's about taking ownership of your side. And it requires actively using appropriate techniques, trusted friends, therapy, meditation, journaling, finding a teacher, whatever it takes to stay sharp and directed.
It's the quality of intent and the consistency of application that matters.
Exactly. The quality of your intent and the consistency and depth of your application determine the results of your direction and gifting deeper love and presence.
And this emphasis on growth and maintaining polarity includes personal restoration outside the relationship too, right? Chapter 50. Restore your purpose in solitude and with other men. Why is time apart so important, and how does restoration differ for men and women in this model?
Too much time together, especially undifferentiated time just coexisting, inevitably neutralizes polarity over time, he argues. To maintain the charge, a man needs periods of solitude and the specific challenge camaraderie of other men to restore his masculine core. Similarly, a woman needs dedicated time with other women to revitalize her feminine core.
How does he describe women's rejuvenation?
She needs regular, maybe even daily, doses of absolute abandon and celebration with other women, things like dancing, singing together, deep, unrestrained laughter, shared vulnerability. Without this specific feminine communion, she can develop symptoms of depressed feminine energy, like physical ailments, low libido, or a generally despondent mood.
And for men, if purpose is lost or energy is depleted, it's not about singing and dancing with the guys. The cure is different.
Very different, according to Deida. The cure is austerity and challenge.
Austerity and challenge. Okay, break those down. What does he mean by austerity?
Austerity means consciously, voluntarily eliminating comforts and cushions that dull your edge and distract you from your core. Things like mindlessly consuming news, excessive TV, sugary foods, casual sex use as a pacifier, pointless movies, aimless conversation. It's about stripping away the superficial to face the unadorned suffering or discomfort that is the hidden texture of your life, pushing through fear into an unthreatenable openness. Realizing, as he puts it, that you were born as a sacrifice to your deepest purpose.
Wow, and challenge.
Challenge involves engaging in activities that push your limits, physically or mentally. Physical challenges like mountain climbing, demanding sports, ropes courses, or direct gift-giving challenges like public speaking, writing that novel you've been avoiding, starting the business. The key is there must be a consequence for freezing in the face of fear. Real stakes.
And the most potent forms combine both austerity and challenge.
Yes. Things like extended solitude in nature, perhaps combined with fasting, maybe sleep deprivation, engaging in conscious spiritual practice, waiting for a vision for your next step. He also reemphasizes the vital role of men's gatherings here.
Those weekly meetings again.
Yes, at least weekly with other committed men, specifically to cut through the bullshit, offer that brutal honesty, and suggest concrete challenges with real consequences to keep each other accountable and growing. These intense sessions should alternate, he suggests, with masculine celebrations that still maintain consciousness. Maybe things like swimming in ice water together or chanting mantras even while potentially inebriated, keeping the focus sharp.
So the ultimate goal is to consciously arrange life to include both your necessary restoration and hers, to avoid that slow slide into bargain stagnation and sexual neutralization that can happen in long-term relationships.
Exactly. It requires conscious effort and structure from the man to ensure both partners get the specific kind of rejuvenation they need to maintain their polarity and vitality.
Finally, we arrive at the last chapter covered in this part, chapter 51. Practice dissolving. What's the ultimate aim for a man in Daida's framework with this final practice? It sounds very spiritual.
It is deeply spiritual. Like dissolving in the intensity of an orgasm, he writes, a man's greatest desire is to be utterly released. Released from the constraints of the small self, the ego, into the infinite, it's the culmination of the search for freedom.
And the practice is constant.
Yes. Moment by moment, practice loving through your woman in the world, allowing the force of your surrender to transform every moment into an orgasm of divine dissolution. You essentially die in the giving of your gift, dissolving the sense of a separate giver until you don't even notice you've stopped holding on to yourself. You become the love, become the gift.
And his powerful final thought on fear, which seems to underpin so much of this.
Fear is your final excuse. Don't fight it. Love through it. Let love be the force that carries you beyond fear, into dissolution, into freedom.
Wow. What a profound and often really challenging journey we've taken today through David Deida's The Way of the Superior Man. We've really explored his call for men to redefine masculinity, haven't we? To live with that unwavering purpose, to embrace authenticity, grow beyond fear.
And navigate intimacy with real integrity, understanding that sexual polarity he talks so much about.
Absolutely. It's a vision that asks men, really, to unite their heart and their spine, to move beyond those old ideals and maybe even beyond some current trends, to truly embody love and consciousness in every single facet of their lives.
Yeah. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really raises an important question for you, the listener, doesn't it? It makes you think, what aspects of your own life, maybe your relationships or your personal purpose, what are you currently waiting to fully engage with?
That's a great question. Where are you holding back?
Exactly. And maybe what's just one immediate step, doesn't have to be huge, but one step you could take today to lean just beyond your current edge, to embrace that challenge, face that fear for the sake of your own deepest truth and love.
That's a fantastic thought to leave everyone with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into some truly powerful and transformative ideas. Remember, as always, these insights are meant to spark reflection, maybe some debate, and hopefully personal application in your own unique life.
Definitely food for thought.
For sure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe for more summaries, and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.